Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Belvidere Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted with the Star Ledger and Express Times and submitted to the town clerk of the town of Belvidere on August 10th, 2020. Due to COVID-19, masks will be required at this meeting. Board members will be able to participate in the meeting virtually or via conference call, and the meetings will be live streamed for members of the public that do not wish to attend in person or when indoor capacity is met. Public not in attendance can email comments to be read during public participation to rtjalma@belvideresd.org. Public comment on agenda items needs to be received by 7:20 and have public participation in the subject line. Resolution and motion was made and seconded pursuant to bylaw 9310 to suspend certain meeting procedures as described in the notice of meeting, specifically to authorize board members to participate in the meeting virtually via conference call if desired. Can I get a motion and a second on that?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it's time for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance, sorry, I threw a complete blank, of the United States of America to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So you want to do roll call?
Mr. Blum? Mrs. Pacino? Here. Mrs. Constantino? Here. Dr. Zuppert?
Here.
Mrs. Warwick? I'm sorry, Mrs. Duckworth? I read it.
Both ways, I'm here.
Mrs. LeVar? Mr. Ty? Mrs. Pell?
Here.
Mrs. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Steffen?
Here.
And Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Okay, Chris, superintendent's report, you're up.
Okay. I'll move this way. Take the mic too. Here, just have a lot of leg on in here. Or? I don't want to. Yeah. I'm going to just take my mask off so I can be heard tonight, because I heard last time it was a little muffled, so we want to make sure that everything is heard. So the goal for tonight was to just review. I think I'm too close to the. Better? So the goal for tonight was to review the numbers as we finally have the data from the students that were choosing all virtual instruction. And just as a breakdown, we'll talk real quick just as the overall, and then we'll go through the high school numbers, and we'll go through the Oxford Elementary School numbers too, and we can kind of get a sense of where we stand, and then we can kind of ask questions based off of that. So we had the shut off as of 10 o'clock on Monday night for the survey. And you can see for responses, we had 375 at the high school and 252 at the elementary school. And our total in-person number will be 438. And 189 virtual instruction. And we did have a few that chose virtual instruction after the 10 o'clock cutoff. I know there was a few emails that went over the last couple of days, and we will try to adjust as best we can when we do get those requests. Okay, and just real quick, at the high school level, the number of virtual students in each class will range from 0 to 7. And then just to remind, classes at the elementary level, synchronous instruction will occur with virtual and in-school students. So we do appreciate everybody that took time to do the survey and responded. It really helps us put ourselves together and solidify where we are with the plan. So I'll start with the high school, and there's a lot of information there. I did share with the board members yesterday, late in the day yesterday, these numbers. They changed just a little bit. Jess, is that true over the last 24 hours, or those numbers are solid? Okay.
numbers that we have.
The only difference is what I sent you had the teacher's name next to it. This does not. Okay? So as you can see, without reading each and every one of those numbers, and this information will be available on the Belvidere website at some point in the day tomorrow, but just to give you a sense, you can see right there for the English courses. You can see where we have the number of students that opted out, the number of students that will be in person. In person, in the virtual, in the setting. So just for an example, the AP, English language, we have 13 students who have opted to have in-person education and 2 for virtual. And then as you look at some of the numbers, I don't want to go through everything I said. I think it's a lot of numbers, but you can see we still do have a few numbers that are relatively high. That English 10 is at 19. And as you can see, a few 19s, a few 17s. So we do have some classes that are going to be above and beyond that, that somewhat mark of 12 as a safe split. Okay, again, then you can see the math numbers. Again, some of the numbers are low, like the geometry honors, where that one section has 8 students of in-person versus, and then 0 virtual. But you do have some big numbers, again, like college algebra for 26 of the 29 students will be in person. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask when it comes to the numbers. I'm not sure what's the best way to actually sit there and go through all of this.
Chris, this doesn't take into account, though, right, the split, because it's going to be half.
Does not take into account the split. This is the straight numbers as they are. The interesting thing was, and I think it's worth mentioning, when we took a look at the overall numbers, we anticipated somewhere around a 25% opt-out. The actual percentage was a little bit lower, it's 23%, but it's not 23% straight across the board. So the best example when we get to the elementary school numbers is, for second grade, you had 15 out of 25 opt-outs, 15 out of 25 students opt out, but for first grade, you had 0. So it's not as if it took the nice, easy, smooth run across.
I thought it was 19% at the high school, 32% at the elementary.
And I did them this morning. I thought it was those numbers. I could be off. So again, you can see the math numbers, the history numbers.
So if we then looked at, alphabetically with the splitting, what the numbers are going to end up being, because the class of 19, we're not going to have that, it's
Right.
gonna be a class of-
So our first goal was to get all these numbers out and sent to everybody. So our next mission will be to do that, just to really look at the split now, really take every roster and look at it and say, okay, if we realize that, and I always use A to L as the natural split and M to Z, but we realize that by doing A to L, that class of 19 really becomes a class of 14 and a class of 5, then we're going to try to look and see how we can adjust those to make them.
Alphabetical might not work. I was thinking
Right.
about that. I'm not really sure how to do it. But.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the biggest questions is what's the most effective way to do that? We started with alphabet. I said to the email this morning, with all respect, if you got a better way, we're all ears, because we haven't quite figured that one out yet. But at least it's a starting point for the moment that we want to just take a look and see how close that is to that, we'll say 50-50 split. Jess, you agree with that? I'm talking up here.
The only thing I want to say is that the high school is so hard because really no matter when you split it, there are going to be some classes that are generally going to be bigger than other classes. So we could go and we can try to split it a different way, but then it's going to be a domino effect and it's going to have an effect on some other classes. So like Chris said, if there's another way that we can figure it out, that would be great, but we've looked at all different angles and it's really difficult.
I know, I was
especially
just-
at the high school level.
Yeah, when you had mentioned like in the honors, splitting it by honors, even that's going to be challenging because not every kid takes all honors classes.
Right.
So it's going to shift numbers here and there the whole way through. So, but that is one of those things with all sincerity. If you have any suggestions, we are all ears on that. But for the most part, I think that's what most of the schools who are splitting are doing, is by some level of the alphabet. And again, and now the science courses, again, you know, these are pretty standard numbers for us. You know, you have some low ones like a college level chemistry, which has 9 in-person versus 2 virtual, and then you have as high as a 20 and 23s. So that's the peril of the high school, is the numbers are all over the place. More language you can see. This is where we generally have some decent sized numbers. Keeping in mind we only have 2 teachers at the moment teaching Spanish, so that's why those numbers are high. Jess, that correct? Okay, see the special ed too with the in-class support. Remember those in-class supports where you see the name next to it, that's where those kids will be in that class also, so those are other students in the class as well, plus the in-class support teacher, so it's adding to the amount of folks in the class. Just real quick on the phys ed numbers. Obviously for phys ed, we're going to be encouraging as much outside activity as possible. The only question mark will be, 2 question marks will be when it rains and once we get into the deeper part of the fall when the weather starts to turn. But for the most part, it'll be outside. The freshman seminar classes are inside as well as the driver's ed courses. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, you can see our fine arts with the choirs, intro to arts. Intro to art, again, those are probably pretty standard numbers. Keep in mind too with Mr. Coyle's room that a number of 17 is really the maximum we can get in that room to begin with, just because of the equipment he has in there. And the kids they're going to have to be using materials, so we got to keep them a little further spaced apart. Same thing with culinary arts and Mrs. Koch's room and how many folks we can throw in there too. So you kind of get a sense of where we are with those courses too. I think that's really about it. And then the ag sciences. So again, this information will go up on the website. We can put that up so parents can just get a sense of what the classes are going to look like. They're not split yet. Once we do get a relatively even split, we'll update that on the website. But at least for now, you can kind of get a sense. So questions for the high school specific? Or do you want to do the other school first and
Anybody
then
has
throw them
questions for the
out?
high school, knock your socks off.
It's just about the split.
The only questions I did hear that maybe you can address now for the public to hear is what the afternoons are going to look like.
Can I wait till we do that? I'll do that with both schools, just so it's that way
Yeah,
it's
just address
together.
that one.
Yep. Okay, so here's the split at the elementary school. Starting with first grade, we only have one student that chose virtual, 13 in person. Again, second grade was that real abnormality with the overall surveys where we have 15 virtual versus 11 in person. So that was once 2 sections. Now it'll be 1 in-person section. Third grade, you can see, is an almost even split. 11 virtual versus 12 in person. Fourth grade is 13 and 25. We had already had that split. Fifth grade is 6 and 19. We are really looking at splitting that fifth grade group. And I think, in talking with Mr. Carabinas at length today, multiple times, we feel that we could do that at the moment. And then you can see sixth is 6 virtual, 22 in person. Seventh is 11 virtual, 15 in person, 8th is 12 virtual, 29 in person. We have kindergarten 5 virtual and 16 in person, and pre-K is 6 and 19. We had already had 2 sections of pre-K already put in there. So the question marks become the 5th grade, if we're going to split that, the kindergarten, if we're going to split that, and 1st grade, if we're going to try to split that, although I think 13 we're pretty comfortable with, even though it's really one more over that 12 number. And to do some of those splits, we're going to have to make a little bit of sacrifices. For example, I think if we were to split the 1st grade, not the 1st grade, the kindergarten, we would need to probably take one of our RTI teachers out of the mix. So there's that sort of a pull here to put there. 5th grade, we feel we could do without really disrupting the schedule too much.
And we already were splitting 8th. Right?
Already we're splitting 8th, yep. Yep, we were. So in the afternoon, the question was, what are we doing in the
What do
afternoon?
the afternoons look like?
Chris, you want to just come up and talk about the afternoons, remote advisors, and how you have your setup, and then we'll follow up with the high school. Mike. Use the thing, because I was talking through it.
One of the plans is, especially during the day, the difference between remote, I'm going to explain the difference between a remote advisor and academic coach. A remote advisor is something that happens during the contractual day between 8:10 and 2:20. So if a teacher has a full day during the 4-hour session, they'll get their prep and the lunch in the afternoon and a built-in remote connection. So every student that is choosing virtual from day 1, September 8th, or way before, because we met with our guidance counselor on Tuesday, and we're starting to set up the connection to the students, to the teachers who have remote time. So we have a connection and one go-to for every remote child. So there are some teachers who have remote time built into their contractual 8:10 to 12:20 day, okay? We're gonna use the academic coaches, which is that stipend position. That is after hours, the stipend pay, where the parent, child, and the teacher can all remote dial in to get some homework help after school hours. So the biggest miss when we first went remote back in March was accountability and just access to resources. So what we're going to do is we're streamlining the connection to the school with one person for every child for a remote advisor. Academic coaches is for remote and in-person learners, but that's after the contracted day. So if there's there's one go-to for every, and I don't have the breakdown of the numbers on how, I'm assuming it's probably gonna be around 5 to 6 per teacher, okay? So a teacher could have remote during the day and at like 1:40 to 2:20 in their schedule.
Just mention too, preps and lunches for teachers.
Preps and lunches for teachers is after the school day, after that in-person time, and that's where it's built in. So the lunch and prep is, and one of the things, and this is just for flexibility, a remote time, say if we're short for subs, a remote time during the day can turn into a coverage, and the remote afternoon can turn into a prep, because we're already anticipating some sub coverages, so we are trying to work that into the schedule. And we are going to use a lot of our special teachers, which with some of the moves we have to do with breaking classes, we may be losing some of the coverages, but our key is to use some of those specialty teachers to fill some of the break time, to fill some of the recess time, to give the teachers break and all those things throughout the day. So the big thing was remote and academic coaches is a huge piece.
So similar in the high school, where a lot of the prep time will come in that afternoon. The other thing that, as we've been talking about this, and Chris and Jess are the scheduling gurus for each building, which is why they're really the ones talking. The one thing we did talk about is during that 8:05 to 12:20 in the elementary school, and from 7:40 to 12 in the high school, the teachers will probably be a little bit more focused on the kids that are in front of them at that point. While they can answer questions from the virtual students, obviously I think it's a natural to be working with the kids that are right in front of you. And then in the afternoon, they'll be able to circle back with those virtual kids to make sure that all their questions were answered, make sure they understand all the topics, make sure that they really feel as though they're a part of the class. So. Just wait
You
one
have to wait
second.
the
We'll get the
public
public position in a second.
participation, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So if you end up only splitting fifth grade and not splitting kindergarten, can you put the kindergarten in the largest room?
Yeah, yeah, the other thing we're looking at too, and we were just started to kick around some of the room, not to cut you off, I apologize for that, but we will also be looking at using the music room as an actual room, and as much as we can, we're going to take a look at the cafeteria, but that's, the gym is going to interfere with that just once we get to the thing. But yeah, so we're going to look at putting them in a bigger room if we do have the 16.
We do have 4 empty rooms right now. We have room 1, we have room 21. Room 1 is last year's first grade. Room 21 was Feldman's room. We have the music room and the art room.
Right, the art room also,
So
so.
the largest room in Oxford is the old library.
Largest room is the old library.
How many kids can we fit in there?
We have the space and possible staff to
Okay,
Yeah.
so you could put the kindergarten.
So we would look for the biggest space to do that if we kept that kindergarten at 16, yes.
Because the 19 fifth grade, you definitely gonna have.
We're going to have to split that group. There's just, it's an easy split. Yeah, it's an easy split. So.
You mentioned specials, with the specials teachers, giving breaks and so forth. Are we losing any specials classes in this?
all specials, Spanish, art, and music will be remote.
We're having all three.
We'll be all remote, all virtual.
If we don't have to use the staffing, there's a possibility to go back into the schedule. Right now, with some of the moving and switching and splitting the classes, we don't know.
Right. So that's probably a better question after we sit Tuesday. I have mentioned that we asked by August 15th any teachers that have medical reasons to let us know by then. So Tuesday we're going to basically sit and I don't want to say reschedule because I think that doesn't make sense, but we're going to make sure we have everything covered.
So the kids would be going home, having their lunch, and then logging back in for Spanish, art, and or music?
Correct.
It would be like a weekly check in case into this project.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like once we check in by grade level, we'll be scheduled.
Okay.
Now, these numbers, Chris, do they have the pullouts in there? Or are the pullouts above and beyond this, or these contain the pullout numbers?
When you say pull-out, you mean special ed?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do not. Those are just the regular numbers. Keep in mind that pullout is only for math and ELA.
Right.
So when you have a social studies or a science class, that's the number you're going to have in your class.
Okay, but so for math and ELA, we'll have less than that in there?
Correct.
Okay.
There are some grade levels that all of us were did not have.
Yeah, we did see that. He said that for some of the grade levels, we did have the majority of the resource room students opt out,
Okay.
go virtual. So, good.
For the younger grades, K through 8, we're not doing for the alphabet, that's only the high school.
Correct.
So like, for instance, when you split fifth grade at 19 kids, how are you going to decide, are you going to split that based on level, like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
I hadn't thought about that. I don't know if you put some thought into that yet, Chris?
Would that be easier to have, with all the distractions and everything, have,
We plan on doing a heterogeneous.
Okay. We'll discuss that. That's something we haven't quite got there yet, but I could see your point. Questions?
well, I just know, because my son
Yeah.
used to be in that class, they used to have 2 levels.
Right.
And then they got merged again, and so I'm just thinking that, because they had the one math, which was great, if they're gonna split anyway.
Well, we can take a look at that when we do the scheduling on Tuesday, and we'll figure that piece out.
Any other questions? Is that it?
Open it up to public?
Well, if you're done, are you done?
No, I'm done.
Oh, just one more about
Go.
phys ed. So they're going to go out so the phys ed teacher's not coming into the classroom.
Correct.
So for the elementary level, they'll be with that one teacher, except for the middle school, are the teachers moving to the kids at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade
Yes.
level?
Teachers are moving to the kids at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level. The only time they would move is for PE.
Okay.
So we go to public participation now.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. You guys ask as many questions as you want.
I do have one question.
Go for it.
For the kids, so we're obviously looking at, there's a potential the option of then joining virtually to continue?
That's an excellent question. Glad you asked that question. Yes. So we do have a student that is either does test positive or has to be quarantined because someone in the family tests positive. Then yes, I'll say the second, but not quite the second. That day we will offer them the virtual instruction, make sure they're logging in, and make sure they have all that for the 2 weeks that they would have to be home. Same thing for a 10-day or something like that, anything to that effect. So yeah.
Also, the students absent, and they're absent, they want to check into the synchronous time, or they can get credit for that. Because there's going to be a new feature on Genesis to check in with the class.
Hey, Chris, one more. I originally asked about the high school in the afternoons, and you said that grammar school, but you didn't talk about the high school.
I thought I did. So same idea where most of the teachers' prep time will be in the afternoon. Those that are getting, again, remember, high school's 6 over 4. 6 over 4. So that'll be there. Same idea where the kids, they'll focus on the students that were virtually learning, making sure that they're caught up, checked in, and things of that, just making sure that they're on the same page.
So there won't be any classes for the high school students in the afternoon. It'd just be teachers checking in with students.
Correct.
So they will have a true half-day. Where the grammar school technically sort of has a full day because they got in school half a day and at home the other half.
I don't see it that way because I don't want to pick on anybody, but like Ms. Zekas, she would be done pretty much teaching, although she's checking in the afternoon.
I'm talking about the students now. So the students in the elementary school, they
Correct.
go to school for
Yeah, so the high school kids are done
Then
at-
they go to school at home.
Yeah, the kids
high school
themselves.
go to school during
Yes.
the day,
I thought
but
you were talking
then
about
in the
teachers.
afternoons, they don't go to school.
Correct.
Okay.
So they're done. Get your homework done. Do good. Do well in school.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
And and
Question
they're,
about the services,
oh, yeah.
like OT, PT, speech.
So we are working on those on truly an individual basis. It is our goal to have most of that done in the afternoon. So working out with parents to have the students stay to get those services in the afternoon. We're going to try very hard not to pull out as much as we can in that first go around. So that'll be done almost on truly like an IEP is an individual plan. We're going to do that on an individual basis. But we want to try to keep it between that 12:20 and 2:20 time frame as best we can.
An ELA pullout could happen in the morning.
Could still do that. I know Chris and I talk a lot about that, not having as much ELA pullout in the morning. We're going to try to keep them in the classroom, but it still will
They
happen.
have to do the gen ed class, and then they have to do the ELA class, the same thing.
Just one more time, ask it again. Yep.
So if they have reading and language arts in the morning,
Mhm.
as a period with the regular teacher, but they're also getting ELA, they have to get ELA on top of that?
We can discuss, we're open to changing everything. I know the standard answer is we got to look at what the IP says at the moment, because if it says they get both, then they should get both. So it's going to depend on what this child's IEP says.
Yeah, they don't need to say both.
Yeah, so we'll follow along with that. And I'm sure the team has been already contacting parents to discuss IEPs and what the services are and how we can offer them, but it is a change to an IEP. So.
So now that I understand there's no afternoons, so this high schoolers are going 2 days a week, half days, and then 3 days the following week, half days.
Correct,
So basically 5 half days in a given 10 days.
correct.
And then they have virtual every other.
And then virtual.
I think we're on the same page of where's the electives then for the high school kids?
They stay in their normal schedule.
So they're saying,
Their
but
classes are
I'm just
still-
trying to figure that, yeah, it's all smushed together in half days. They're able to get everything in and they're only 2 days a week. And then, I know you said, well, they can work on their homework after school, which I agree with, but then every other day they're not there either.
So on those every other days that are not there, though, they should still be logging into the class. For virtual. So they're still going. If I have Miss Golda 8:10 in the morning and I'm home, I'm still logging into Miss Golda's class at 8:10 to still do that classwork.
Right, but it's not synchronous. It's just, looking at the assignment. It's not like there's no camera.
It should be synchronous. You should, the way we have it set up, it should be synchronous.
But there's not a camera. It's not synchronous.
No, you got a mic and you have what's on the computer screen.
I guess, like, my brain's not clicking with virtual learning being a substitute for in-person learning. So that's where the disconnect is, I think. But some people,
Totally understand that. I know where you're coming from. I get it.
I just know how virtual, I just don't think virtual learning is a substitute for it.
I
So
agree.
no other high school districts are doing split days because of teacher preps, where they have a morning and shift and then an afternoon shift.
Not that I know of in the county, no.
And we didn't lose any specials in this at the high school either.
We did not.
Okay, any more questions for Chris before we go to public participation? Okay, just a friendly reminder, the board does not participate in public participation. We bend that rule sometimes, so if we could try to refrain. Okay, open it up to public participation. Anybody have any questions or comments from the public? Raise your hand. If you could come up to the mic, tell us who you are.
Hi, Bob Burke. My son's going to be a freshman this year. I understand the classes are going to be like 36, 37 minutes long. He is going to be doing in-person. He didn't he's going to be doing the hybrid. What time is the dismissal for the in-person?
It's at 12.
Right, so 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
At what time and how much time after 12 o'clock are the teachers available online for each one of his classes?
So it's going to be approximately from about 1:20, depending on the actual minutes for the prep time, to 2:20. So about an hour, that hour like around, like I would say 1:30 to 2:30, but the contract
So
is...
they're only going to be available till 2:30?
Like they would normally be if they were here, yes.
Okay. I mean, last year, that the school day ended at 2:30? That's when they got out of school?
2:20.
2:20, okay.
Yep.
All right. Now, I have another question.
Sure.
As far as if somebody's going in person, okay, where they're doing the hybrid, they test positive, they have to be home for 2 weeks. Does that automatically switch them over to virtual, or
Yes.
do they come back after?
No.
the 2
If
weeks?
they're cleared to come back, they can come back.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Hi, Danielle Jennings. So my question is, for the younger grades, what does the day look like? You guys keep saying recess. So is there, I don't really know what a half-day schedule looks like. I'm assuming fun, classes, arts and crafts, and, regular. But then recess is great, but then is there still going to be learning after that, or will that be towards the end of the day? Only because without food, after running around for recess, you might have some cranky kids.
Ms. Carabas, can you just touch on that?
Yes, we will have recess and we'll follow all protocol for any snack.
So there is snack time.
We're hoping is making sure we follow all the proper procedures.
Great.
Recess is scheduled in. How the schedule's going to work, like, we've been working BD with the staff for probably 3 weeks now. And one of the things is you're going to see the schedule, but the schedule within the schedule is broken up because it's synchronous, asynchronous, or recess, and it's asynchronous for other kids. So there will be a lot of built-in break breaks, recess, and outdoor protocols. We will, I will have a better report specific to snacks, make sure it's not
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, because I figured obviously allergies and not in the lunchroom and just cleanliness and ants and whatever, but at least for the midgets,
We're looking at adopting, when it comes to like going outside for recess and stuff, we're adopting the preschool model. Our philosophy is unless there's a national weather advisory not to go out, we're going outside. Okay, so that's just our,
okay, great.
Jack Colazo Harfst. I have an 8th grader and a junior. My concern is more with the 8th grader who's going to stay in the same room for 4 hours. What does the school have to kind of remediate the air quality in the rooms? Because COVID is airborne, and if one kid takes off their mask for a little while, how do we keep that air filtrated?
Ms. Gold, you want to take a crack at that? That's a Mr. Barrett question.
The mask should not come off.
The mask shouldn't come off, that's, yeah.
So that's your,
There'll be no mask breaks, right?
not that, if there is a mask break, it'll be outside.
Outside?
And they'll be socially distanced,
Okay.
yes.
I can get specifics on air filtration and things like that from Mr. Barrett
Okay, thank
and
you.
just report out on it. Yeah. Okay. Ms. Chalma may take a stab at this. She thinks she has a response.
I've been corresponding with the operations chief of the school district, Jim Merrick, and he's explained that we do have an HVAC system throughout the entire building. Two pieces in the high school and the Oxford Street, we actually just completely upgraded over the last 3-4 years, I want to say. There's approved filters in all the HVAC system. They are changed quarterly, and the classroom vents are changed semi-annually. So we are definitely in compliance with the filtration. That air filtration goes into all classes, including classes that don't have windows. So classrooms with windows, we are suggesting that you can open those up, get airflow in from the outside. We have ordered screens for any window in the building that allows screens. There are some windows, mostly in the Oxford Elementary School, that you cannot fit screens in there. So you could open windows, but there would not be a screen. There are certain places where we do have, separate standalone air filtration systems. But with the HVAC system that we have, we do not need to have those in every single room. The air still meets all of the Indoor Air Quality Act regulations.
Is that for antiviral or just bacterial and fungal? Because some filters are not good enough for the small particles that are viral.
That's the information that I have from him, but I'll ask that specifically.
Any other questions? Typically, just so you know, we limit your time up for one question, but we
Okay,
don't have the
sorry.
time, so we'll let you go ahead.
Just a brief question. I know, because I'm getting confused with Harmony and Belvidere. The high school kids, are they moving from classroom to classroom?
They are.
They are?
There.
Are you guys doing anything to control the flow? Because every 37 minutes, you're going to have...
Well, we have a one-way system that we hope will will limit some of the interactions. We're also adding more passing time. Normally we had 3 minutes. Now we're going, I think, to 5 to try to work on some of that.
Okay.
Hi, Donna Golda, high school nurse, Sue March, your elementary nurse. Not to get off topic, but at the end of the last meeting that I was at, you were discussing again about pushing to open 3rd Street. And we did send a list of our health and safety concerns that we have about not opening that school. It sounds like now with the kids that are going to be virtual, we'll have enough room to spread out in Oxford Street, but I just wanted, Sue knows that building well, so I wanted her to go over her list for you again, and then if you had any questions, you can ask us, but we just wanted to, voice our opinions about not opening that school, especially during this time and not pushing to open it with 3 weeks, 4 weeks to go. It's physically and health-wise not, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's physically impossible too. We've used up, she'll mention that high school, health office in 3rd Street, we stripped. We used the supplies, we used the furniture, and she'll go into how it's just not good for COVID times, that's for sure.
And selfishly, I love my job. So to say that first, I love having all the kiddos. I feel like I have a really great setup finally in the Oxford Street office. I have a space to quarantine kids. I'm right near the exit. I do have a sink right in my office. That's one of to go back to having no sink. Part of the reason that I left that school when the opportunity came up at Oxford Street was more because of the better health office than the kids. I love all the age kids. So it's, you know what I mean? I, did not leave there, hoping just to work with middle schoolers or anything like that. So the availability of sinks is really big during COVID. We're, to go back to not having a sink in the health office, to go back to having a staff bathroom through the health office where if I have a kid that maybe I haven't even taken a look at yet and some staff comes through and goes to the bathroom and then here that kid has a temperature and their parent had an exposure or something, we've just exposed more people. When people come into the office, they have to come through pretty much that whole first floor to get to the office. So they would create an exposure for that too, and there's no privacy there. So mostly, I think those were our biggest concerns. The rooms are more cluttered. There's more carpeting on the floor. I feel like the rooms at Oxford Street are much easier to clean. The ventilation is better. If a student has an injury, there's no handicap access. We had parents who couldn't come in to see their kids or sign their child out, or because of the building's layout. For EMS access, it's challenging. Like Donna said, we used all those supplies, and so at this point, to really purchase everything and to stock it and set it up and get it up and running would really be kind of challenging. Shared staff would increase exposure. The security of that building was never ideal. Having everybody that would have to come past the nurse's office to come all the way through the whole first floor. So I think those were pretty much it. And now it sounds like, we have empty rooms and stuff at Oxford Street. So, with the lower volume of students, it doesn't sound like we need it, we have enough going on here. That's it. Anything else?
We just want to thank you for listening. We just want to express our concerns, especially during these times. I know you mentioned you didn't have a nurse and you're looking to hire a nurse, but that's not the only issue. It's part of the issue, but she has no facility to go to, and not a health room that would be equipped for her to handle students with COVID during this time. So, anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public participation from the public? Sheldon, do you have any emails?
I have at least one. I have one email. Good evening. I'm Christy Weber, president of the Belvidere Education Association, and I would like to write about reopening our schools safely. I absolutely appreciate all the ideas, hours, and dedication of all the reopening committee members. This wasn't an easy task by any means, and the information was constantly changing, which meant the plan needed to change several times. Although I'm appreciative, there are many areas of the reopening plan that will need more attention. For one, I've asked a few times if all of the HVAC units are now using the proper filters, and I still await an answer. It's imperative that these approved air filters are in place for in-person learning to begin. Also, ventilation in classrooms is a huge issue. Many classrooms cannot get a cross breeze, nor can air circulate with the windows open. We are being assured that each window will have screens, but air circulation will still be a problem on hot, humid school days. We also have several classrooms being used without windows. These need our focus. I would implore the board to help the association ensure the safety for all of our students, staff, and their family members by creating policies that will keep everyone healthy in our district. We need to create safeguards before the start of any in-person learning. If the year cannot be started safely in person, the only option is to learn virtually for the safety of everyone mentioned above. We have a good plan to start, but we need to focus on all the moving parts that may become issues as we move along in planning. I hope we can move forward with policies as well to create a safe environment for our community. Thank you, Christy Weber.
Anything else?
That is the only one that has come through.
Okay, we're past 7:20, so, all right, this is ending public participation, but I did want to remind you, you did not talk about how the plan will and probably will change.
Yeah, good point.
Just keep that in mind.
Actually, I just wanted to also mention,
One more just came through. Shall I read it?
Go ahead.
This is from Patricia Holcomb. Please keep, well, I can't read it then. It says to keep her name anonymous, so I'm not going to read it.
Oh. Maybe you could, at some point, circulate it to board members instead then.
Well, that doesn't go in our anonymous policy.
I don't know what our anonymous policy says, I gotta be honest with you. All right, Chris, you're up. Go ahead.
And I will mention, the first thing, as Mary Ann brought up, keep in mind that this plan is consistently changing. We seem to have narrowed in at least the main working parts of it, and starting to really get closer as we get closer to that opening day. But I would expect things can change, on the drop of a dime as they did. I always go back to March 13th when we sat with the staff and said, well, there's a chance we may not be coming back, for a couple of weeks, and we haven't been back since. So just always, I know Chris sends out almost sometimes twice a day update to his staff, and I think today's was flexibility is the key word moving forward, and we do know there's going to be changes that'll be made. As we do change, we'll update the board. As you saw earlier this week with the approved plan, the one that the county did approve, we sent what was changed within the plan so you would know. It's interesting that, just with the whole virtual thought process, I know that if you were watching the governor yesterday, he did say that schools could go all virtual to start. The executive order finally came out this afternoon. I personally don't think the way our plan is written, we would even be close to qualifying for all virtual at this point, because we really do hit all the boxes on the checklist itself, which I'm very happy about too, by the way. But I know that there are some districts locally that are strongly considering all virtual to start, so you may start to hear that as things get a little bit closer to that start date. But I don't think that we would qualify given the space that we have, even just on Oxford Street in the high school, and the way our class numbers look at the moment. So.
All right, that was all I had. Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
In response to the question about ventilation, air circulation, classrooms using not using windows, isn't that the point of the masks?
I think that's what Donna Golder said.
Yeah.
So if they're wearing masks,
You still want some circulation within the room, but the masks will still
we received an email that they're concerned about being in person because of safety measures.
Mhm.
But we verified that if the kids are wearing the masks, that's safe. Yeah. So we don't need to worry about. And then Mr. Vera clarified the filters.
Correct.
So we're safe. We're still going in person.
Yeah.
We are still going in person.
None of it prevents 100%. So
Right.
everything backed up on top of it's going to get the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can't perfect everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if people are that concerned, they should opt to keep their children home.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we're still on target for in person. That's what I was saying with that executive order that he talked about yesterday, and what those qualifications are.
And the teachers too, they have the option of staying home if they need to. Do we get an answer on how many teachers are staying home?
You would need a medical excuse. It's open. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's open until the teachers have to let us know by Saturday.
Oh, we don't until Saturday?
I have received some, but I don't want to give you the number right now because it could change between now and Saturday.
Is it under 5?
It is not under.
Is it under 10?
I'll say that I have under 5 looking to not be in person. How about that?
Okay.
But we have others that are asking for accommodations.
Chris, can you go over the mask with students? It was my understanding, and I could be confusing point with that if they're at their desk and not going to see the teacher or going to the bathroom or walking around the room, they're no longer allowed to take their mask off.
Correct. The governor mandated masks will be worn at all times.
I have a question about the teachers. So when the kids go home at 12 or whatever the time is, and I know they stay till like 2:30, they're just staying in their classrooms to finish their day. It's not a half day for teachers to go home.
That'll be a discussion for the Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday night.
That's next week's conversation.
We'll discuss that next week.
And then I think my only other question was about grades 6 to 8. I appreciated the 3rd Street explanation. I really do. My only reason for really wanting it open was because of the middle schoolers into the high school. So is there a way to put it, if we have extra rooms, the 6th to 8th graders in Oxford Street Elementary and not in the high school?
Chris is, but I'll get back to you on that because now we want to look at, we're just going to look at all the classrooms and possibly moving a couple of classes back into Oxford Street. You and I talked about that today. We need to sit and look at everything now that we know what the numbers are. And if we're splitting that 5th grade, it's going to have an impact on that and a couple things like that.
And transportation for those that need it, bus-wise, what are the restrictions on that?
That's going to be up to the sending district.
Anybody else? Going once?
Wait, I do. All right. Last week you had talked, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Last week,
fine.
I just remembered a question from last week. You had talked about staggering the elementary students coming in. Do we have plans?
We don't have that plan. We'll have that by the end of next week. Now that we know how many kids we have coming in, we'll be able to stagger the question, Chris, was on staggering the entrance for the elementary kids. So we'll work on that.
He didn't have a clue what you just said.
Yeah, no, he never.
Having his own conversation and really not listening, so.
I think somebody got called out.
It's really hard to hear up here.
Any other questions from the board?
Wait, Melissa's question is, you mean entering the building?
Yes, for the coming and going. He had talked about there being staggering times, but I didn't know if we had set, like, is it 10 minutes or, so what does that look like? Does it mean at 8:05 this group comes in and then they leave at 2:10 or at 12:10, whatever it is now, and keep my hours straight, but, so I was just wondering what our.
We'll have that all squared away. We'll have that all squared away next week.
Easier to stagger the entryways because we're certainly rebuilding the whole schedule if we're going to change the times. It would be easier. It's like last year we eliminated 4th and 5th grade going into the egress there in between. We can put that back in. We can put the 6th, 7th grade to the front. We can bring some of the younger to the front. We can stagger the entryways.
Yeah. Chris, the suggestion was, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and maybe think about doing that alphabetically. So if I have 3 kids, that they're not going to 3 different entrances because they're spread out, and maybe you just have I think we'll look into that.
I'm thinking about if you have a lot of the younger kids, parents all standing outside at the same time. I mean, that's not just the kids coming and lining up, but I'm thinking, okay, so if all the kindergarten, if they're all standing on the front sidewalk, they're all standing next to each other, maybe wearing masks, maybe not. We don't know if they're going to follow everything or not outside that way. What is that looking like in a day? Because we already know that when you drive up in front of the school, 5 minutes before school starts, it's chaos, and there's people everywhere, and they're running across the street and whatnot. So I'm just wondering what that looks like, and then how are we prepared for that horrible first week chaos that we always go through anyway.
Yep. I actually think alphabetical is a pretty good idea. We'll have to talk about that. We'll get that out.
That would break up the little kids too for all 3 doors instead of having them all at one door.
Yep.
You are done. Public participation has been closed.
School supply lists. I know I waited. I usually have all my shopping done by now. I waited because of the not going virtual. But do we have those out? I've had parents ask me, are they on the website for each grade level like they always were?
They are being updated as we speak.
Okay.
They are not completed. They will be posted because they're being scaled way back.
So they'll just be posted on that?
We'll send out an announcement. We're going to do a video update tomorrow. Summer update number 3 for everybody with some of the details. But we do not have it complete. But
Right.
just a hypothetical, like sometimes for like the younger, it's just going to be a pencil bag whatever you can fit in.
Okay.
Supplies. So it'll be very, very streamlined and simple.
Thank you.
Recommend sanitizer, hand sanitizer.
Yeah, that's all.
Any other questions from the board? Do it again. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Can I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? Done. Have a nice night, everybody.